The story of Zambia's independence is the story of its political parties. Before there was a nation called Zambia, there were parties, fragile, often divided, but ultimately relentless, that forged a common identity from a patchwork of ethnicities and grievances. They were the engine rooms of a dream, and their formation and evolution tell us everything about how a people learned to demand, organize, and finally, win their freedom. Please subscribe. Seedling emoji, the Genesis, welfare societies and the first Congress long, before the demand for uhuru, freedom, the first political stirrings in Northern Rhodesia were cautious, almost polite. They began not in parliament, but in the modest meeting halls of welfare societies, where a small but growing class of African teachers, clerks, and clergy gathered to discuss their grievances. These were not revolutionaries, they were petitioners, seeking modest reforms and a voice in a colonial system that ignored them. The leap from welfare to politics happened in July 1948, at the Second Congress of the Federation of Welfare Societies, when these groups coalesced to form the Northern Rhodesia Congress, NRC, also known as the Northern Rhodesia African Congress, NRAC. For the first time, the colony had a single, territory-wide African political organization. Its first president was Godwin Lewanika, an aristocrat from Borotsland, whose very name linked the new party to traditional authority. It was a small flame, but it was lit. In 1951, the party adopted a new name, the Northern Rhodesian African National Congress, NRANC, and a new leader, Harry Nkumbula, a charismatic teacher who had studied in London. Under Nkumbula, Congress became the leading force of Northern Rhodesian nationalism in the 1950s, campaigning against federation, organizing boycotts of shops with the color bar, and linking itself ideologically to the African National Congress in South Africa. In 1953, a young schoolteacher named Kenneth Kaunda became the party's general secretary, forming a formidable partnership with Nkumbula. Broken heart emoji, the Great Split, the birth of ZANC and the radical vanguard. The unity of the NRANC, however, was not to last. As the 1950s wore on, the colonial threat of the Central African Federation galvanized the nationalist movement, but it also exposed a deep fissure. Harry Nkumbula, the party's leader, grew increasingly cautious and emollient in his approach. He was willing to negotiate within the existing system. But a younger, more impatient wing, led by Kenneth Kaunda, saw this as a betrayal. The final break came in 1958 over the issue of participating in a general election that would be based on a racially skewed franchise, which Kaunda regarded as a sham. On the 24th of October 1958, Kaunda broke away and formed the Zambian African National Congress, ZANC, a party whose very name, Zambian, was a radical and symbolic declaration of a future nation yet to be born. ZANC was more militant, more uncompromising, and its goal was nothing less than immediate independence. The colonial government, however, would not tolerate this challenge. In March 1959, ZANC was banned, and Kaunda was thrown into prison. The flame of radical nationalism, it seemed, had been extinguished before it could truly burn. Fire emoji, the ascent, UNIP and the road to independence. But you cannot imprison an idea. While Kaunda sat in jail, his lieutenants, led by the resourceful Chona, simply refounded the movement. In October 1959, they launched the United National Independence Party, UNIP, a name that spelled out its goal with unambiguous clarity. Upon his release from prison in 1960, Kaunda was immediately installed as UNIP's leader. The party's growth was spectacular. By June 1960, UNIP claimed over 300,000 members, a staggering number that spoke to the depth of popular anger and hope. UNIP was not merely a political party, it became a mass movement, a vehicle for the people's will. It organized protests, strikes, and civil disobedience campaigns that made the colony increasingly ungovernable. The 1962 elections were a turning point. Although the white-led United Federal Party, UFP, won the most seats. Neither UNIP nor Nkumbula's ranked ANC could form a majority alone. In a stunning political maneuver, Nkumbula chose to form a coalition government with Kaunda's UNIP, uniting the nationalist forces and sealing the fate of the federation. The federation was dissolved on December 31, 1963. The path was now clear. In the final pre-independence elections of 1964, UNIP won a landslide victory, capturing 55 of the 75 seats in the Legislative Council. On the 24th of October 1964, Kenneth Kaunda became the first Prime Minister of Northern Rhodesia, leading the country to independence as the Republic of Zambia, with himself as its first president. Dear emoji, the silent partner, the role of trade unions. No story of Zambia's political awakening would be complete without acknowledging the crucial role of trade unions, particularly the Northern Rhodesian African Mineworkers Union, ANU. Formed in 1949, the AMU, under leaders like Lawrence Katilamu, was a school for political activism. The massive strikes on the Copperbelt in 1935 and 1940 had already demonstrated the power of collective action, and the AMU fought not just for better wages, but against the very principle of racial discrimination in hiring. The union's struggle against the mining companies and the colonial state was inseparable from the broader nationalist struggle. The same men who organized a strike were often the same men who organized a boycott. The trade unions were the muscle behind the political party's words. Red octagon emoji, the end of the beginning. The one-party state the independence won in 1964 was not the end of the story of political parties in Zambia, but the beginning of a new, more troubling chapter. The constitution at independence had established a multi-party system. In the 1968 elections, Kaunda's UNIP won an overwhelming majority, with Nkumbula's ANC reduced to a handful of seats. However, Kaunda grew impatient with opposition, even a weak one. In a chilling declaration on the eve of Christmas in 1968, he stated, "I cannot see how I can continue to pay a police officer or civil servant who works for Nkumbula. How dare they bite the hand that feeds them? They must learn that it pays to belong to UNIP." This authoritarian impulse culminated in 1972 when Kaunda pushed through a constitutional amendment, establishing a one-party participatory democracy, with UNIP as the sole legal party. Zambia was now, in effect, a dictatorship. The parties that had fought so hard to create a nation were now being systematically crushed by the very movement that had led that fight. It was a bitter irony, but it was also a testament to the immense power that political parties had wielded in the struggle for freedom. Their role had been so central that, once in power, they became the only game in town. From the polite petitions of the First Congress to the mass rallies of UNIP, political parties in Zambia were the vessels that carried the nation to independence. They were forums for debate, training grounds for leaders, and vehicles for mobilization. They channeled the anger of the dispossessed into a coherent political program. Their story is one of fragmentation and unification, of imprisonment and resilience, and ultimately, of a people organizing themselves to claim their own destiny. It is the story of Zambia itself.